Welcome everybody, my name is Lisa Daniels. Thank you for coming out tonight on a rather snowy, cold day. We ran into Stan, or Stan ran into us a couple of months ago, I guess, when he was in, I think the upstairs was closed because we were changing the exhibition over, so there wasn't much for him to see in the gallery. But what he was interested in was the perfect view of his work across the street. And he had a crowd of people around him, and he was talking to them, and Darren Dowell, our curatorial assistant, came running into my office and goes, "I just had a talk with Stan Norris. Did you know he was still around?" And it was so interesting. And I go, "Well, go ask him if he wants to come and do a talk. That's perfect." So Darren ran and caught up with him, and sure enough, he obliged. So last week, or earlier this week, Stan came in and we started to prepare for tonight. Think about what kinds of questions we might want to ask and how we wanted to give people the opportunity to bring in their work. And Stan's comment was, well, if I don't, I might not remember them. And I said, well, that's okay, because they probably have stories to tell you. Yeah. So the intent tonight isn't to be a formal talk, presentation, lecture. It's meant to be a conversation, as if we're sitting around the table in Stan's living room, and he's reminiscing, and you're reminiscing about the pieces. We often look at work that is like Stan's, and you think of folk art. And I'm using that term, but I know it's riddled with controversy, because folk art can often mean naive or untrained, and we all know that that's not the case here. But I kept reading and kept looking, and as I was thinking about it more and more, I thought, it isn't necessarily folk art, it's art of the folk. And that's one thing. When Stan was in on Monday, he was looking at, I think it was one of the painting of the mural, and he goes, well, somebody at one point looked it up in the archives, and there was no record of that actually happening, so it's probably not true. And I thought, but that's not what this work is about. It's not documenting necessarily actual, specific, historically accurate details. What it's recording is the experience of the community. It's about the life, and more importantly, it's about you can look really quickly and see what Stan's outlook on life is and what his experience in community is. And so when I found this one sentence, and it said this, and I think it captures for me what Stan's work is about. Folk art expresses cultural identity by conveying shared community values and aesthetics. So it has nothing to do with any of that other stuff that becomes controversial. It's about sharing one's experiences in community. And with that, I'm going to stop, climb up here, and begin the conversation. So I'm just going to jump up here.
Well,
welcome, Stan.
well, thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I didn't realize that it would be so large. I'm amazed at my own stuff.
Well, that's what was sort of the idea of bringing the work in, was so that you could have an opportunity to reminisce a little bit and sort of remember some of the works that people are enjoying in their own homes.
Right, yeah.
But before we start talking about specific ones, Stan, why don't you share with us how you started being interested in art? What got you started wanting to capture activities around you?
Well, my family was artistic. I have a big brother who's equally as capable as me at doing it, if not more so, because he was the cartoonist of the Vancouver Sun. And some of you may know who that is, because He was excellent.
What was his name?
Len Norris.
It might be interesting if people knew too, Stan, that Len had the Order of Canada as a cartoonist.
Ah.
Pardon?
Len had the Order of
Oh,
Canada?
yes, yeah. And like Mrs. Hunter, he had an audience with the Queen in
Audience with
England.
the Queen?
Yeah. Because he has illustrated somewhat like mine, but mostly he was exceptional. He's older. Mostly like mine, and he had done the occasion of the visit of the Queen to Vancouver, Queen and the Prince. And,
Oh, he did the Queen's visit to Vancouver. Now, was he a political satirist or?
Well, I don't think he liked politics. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say that because I'm infringing on his job, because he's a cartoonist for the Vancouver Sun.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes into any political cartoon as a humor piece, and
okay.
They're humorous and they're funny, and most of the time the victim likes the copy and wants it right away.
So he's not offensive.
No, he's not. He wouldn't dare do offensive.
No.
Yeah.
So you start. How did you start working?
Well, I was born in Aberdeen, Scotland, so I'm an Aberdonian. And in 1919, right after the First World War, and that's why I'm 94 today.
Today? It's your birthday today?
No, a couple of days.
Oh, okay.
It's only 2 days away.
We can celebrate now.
Well, there's coffee and Timbits downstairs.
Right.
For Stan's birthday.
Right. We came to Canada in 1926, and I made fame as a singer on the boat.
You which?
I made fame as a singer on the boat because I was only 6 years old, and they had a little contest and do something. So I got up and I sang, "Oh, it ain't gonna rain no more, no more. Ain't gonna rain no more. How in the hell can I get them dum 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 dum?" That kind. I made a hit, so I won a prize and a sawbow. And of course, my brother held his hands up, pitch it, and I pitched it, and it went right over the side of the boat. So, but we ended up in Port Arthur, Fort William, and so on. And being 6, I had to go to school. Well, that wasn't a problem, because in England you started school in 5 or more. And so I won first prize on my first job. You know, I did a little scenery with a little river winding, and they thought it was terrific. And they told me how good I was and everything. And I thought, gee, this is good. Well, the same as here. And they all came and celebrated. So I decided I wanted to be an artist.
When you were 6 years old, you decided you wanted to be an
artist. Well, I had this prize, and very important grown-up people came up and congratulated me. And so that encouraged me. And then, of course, later on in life, I fortunately got a job in an advertising agency. We had moved to Toronto at that time, and Cofield Brown was the advertising agency, and they liked my sketches, so I did sometimes. So they encouraged me and bought me an oil color set.
An oil color set?
And there, go ahead.
There you go.
Well, one of the men wrote down to the Walt Disney Organization and thought I had an ability to do something for them, and they sent an application from California for me to fill out, and at my responsibility, I could go there, but I had to supply my own money and finance it and all the rest of it. But at the same time, I was making an application to the Royal Air Force in England, and they said the same thing. You can come anytime you want, just finance it. So I went over on a tramp steamer.
On a which?
On a tramp steamer.
A tramp?
A freighter.
A freighter, okay.
Yeah, and it was an Irish packet, the Torhead, and arrived in Liverpool, and I made my way to my uncle, who very kindly supplied some of the financing for as far as my eating was concerned and accommodation in England. Anyway, I eventually got into the Royal Air Force, and just in time for the Second World War.
And then when you came back, how did you end up in Sarnia or Lambton County?
Well, I met a girl over in
I met a girl.
my wife was from Glencoe, and she was a nurse and became a nursing sister in the military, and she volunteered. She was a TB nurse at Byron in London, and during the war there was a necessity for a TB nurse in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
She volunteered because she wanted to travel, and it offered a marvelous opportunity. In the meantime, the Royal Air Force sent me to South Africa, and we ended up, she and I ended up in Pretoria.
In Pretoria?
That's the Ottawa.
Via South Africa.
That's the Ottawa of South Africa, where Smuts and
Oh,
Uma
okay.
and all
Okay.
those people
So-
were. And I was a Canadian in the RAF, and they didn't have canteens in South Africa. They had milk bars, and so that everybody, officers, could come to the milk bar and join in with the crowd. And the nurses showed up one day, and we all paired off, and we decided to go for a hike. And across the veldt to 6 Mile Strut, which is about halfway between Pretoria and Johannesburg. And we set out across the veldt, and it started to rain, and it started to pour, and it got worse and worse and worse until there was that much water on the veldt. When we got to the 6 Mile Strut motel, which was built with African kraals, the water was so high, we had to climb on the tables to get out of the water and so on, both the girls and us, because it was a party of Canadians. And we were there for a fair amount of time. So we decided if we're going to be here any longer, we might as well get engaged. Which we did.
After what, 4 hours?
At least, yeah, at least, yeah. We were out in no man's land. And anyway, that's how I became engaged to Doris Mabel Godley from Glencoe.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a nursing sister then, a graduate of Chatham Hospital.
Oh, okay.
And this didn't go over too well with the South African Army Air Force. So they got very upset because they had a regulation that women were not to be posted into a war zone, and etc. And so Doris was posted home from South Africa, which is quite a trip. And And then they looked at me and posted me up to the Middle East. So that efficiently separated us.
Right.
But things didn't work out all that well, because eventually from the Middle East I was transferred to the Royal Canadian Air Force so that I could go home, because we're getting near the end of the war. And there was an RCAF headquarters in Cairo. I didn't know that, but they gave me a new service number, and I was sent home by way of Gibraltar and Mediterranean and so on. And by the time I was setting up the Irish Sea, the war was ended, and we came into Glasgow, and eventually ended up at Bournemouth, where it was arranged that all the veterans could go to London or wherever they wanted to go for a vacation after all the trips. And Doris and I had managed to communicate, and we arranged a little meeting in London, which we did. And then we had to pass the 3 necessary messages back home that the church required. And we got permission to get married in London, England, which we did.
Nice.
Now, there we are.
And then when you got back here.
Yeah. Well, Doris was a nurse, had no trouble getting a job. I had no trouble getting a job. I got, for some reason, I got into the printing press and became a printer, and so on.
And you worked at Haynes Printing for years, is that right?
Right.
Wonderful.
And so we were married, so we moved to Glencoe, because the farm was able to look after us for a while, because we could do things. And then, of course, we managed to settle in London, Canada, Ontario. And that's where I became a proper printer, a union man. And that's pretty well my story.
Oh, nice. And you did have a chance. I just want to check in. It's better? Yeah. Okay, good. Now we can hear without straining too much.
Yeah.
So you did happen to have a little bit of formal art education once you were an adult.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, when I got my office, I became an office boy for the advertising agency.
In Toronto?
In Toronto.
Right.
Yeah. And I joined they decided that I had artistic abilities, and they bought me an oil painting set and so on, and told me to go to get the night school at the Ontario College of Art. Mm-hmm. Now, I did have one of the group of 7 come over and instruct me.
Which one?
That's why I say I did, because I just can't remember his name. It's so far back. But he gave me good advice. He said, Norris, you better get into lettering rather than forget about this stuff.
Better get into lettering?
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
That's right. Well, then of course I joined the Royal Air Force, right, and got into that adventure, and a major travel to South Africa and up the Indian Ocean, and so I had a good war experience. You had to be young in order to do it, mm-hmm, but I never got hurt.
That's good.
And I arrived back home one day, good health, and very happy with my service. Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So why don't we look at some of your work? Now you saw some that I think we asked people to bring in pieces that they might have at home.
Yeah.
And so maybe you've seen one that you haven't seen for a while that you'd like to maybe have a closer look at or speak about? Was there one that you,
Yeah?
or do you want me to just pick one?
Oh, you can pick one, yeah.
Well, why don't we start with one that is, or two that are a little bit different than all the rest? Yeah. Is that
The railroad
ship?
station.
a which?
The railroad station?
No, the ship here.
Oh, the ship.
Can you
Oh,
see
that-
it? Do you
that's
want me to pull it up?
Yeah, I think that's the Cuddy Sark. And it's, yeah.
Did somebody, was this from the church?
Yeah, yeah.
He's got, and he makes
Oh!
wonderful
Oh!
He's a fabulous
Okay.
writer as well.
Yeah.
That, which one should I read? The Hattie Hut. The Hattie Hut, built in 1888 for the Ottawa Transportation Company Limited and named F.B. Stock Bridge. Purchased in 1910 by Captain Frank Granville of Chatham and rechristened Hattie Hut, registry at Chatham. She was sold as a tow barge in 1927. The Hattie Hut, under the command of its owner, Captain Granville, carried lumber and cedar posts from Georgian Bay ports to Lower Lake destinations. She was a familiar sight along the St. Clair River. Three-masted schooner, 134 tons, 108 feet in length. Information from the Detroit Marine historian, pictorial information, Mr. Jack Ridley.
Now I'm completely embarrassed. I've forgotten the name of the artist.
This artist?
Oh, I meet her every day outside of the grocery store. Oh, I'm looking desperately.
The artist who did this?
Yeah, well, no, I'm the artist that did it. But,
What artist do you mean?
Stan Norris. Yeah. But she owned it.
Oh, okay.
And I meet her outside the grocery store every so often.
Grace Knoll?
What?
Grace Knoll?
Yes, very.
On
Thank
loan
you.
from Grace
Thank-
Knoll.
I was desperately looking for that.
Sorry, I thought when you said you forgot the name of the artist that you were trying to pawn it off on somebody else. That's not mine.
Sometimes I do.
So this is really quite different from some of, well, most of your other pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to have a look at this. I don't know if the, Lori, you brought it in. Did you have any comments or any little?
Just the same thing, it's something very different from most of it.
Yeah.
Grace is not here, right?
So this is I'll show it out first and then I'll let you look at it. This is one that Darren Dowell, our assistant, purchased very recently. The day he saw Stan in here, I Googled his name to show him some others and it came up on Kijiji. And he bought it, I forget, I don't even know for how much, but he left and came back a half hour later with it. And it's barn dance, a hoedown, square dance in a barn, a dipsy-do and an all-a-man left, or whatever. All to the music of the fiddlers, a washboard virtuoso, and a tinkling piano. It relieved the monotony of the isolated farm life and got everybody a huffing and a puffing, and a hooting and a hollering, and a aching and a painin'. Oh, Lordy, I'll have trouble kneeling in the church in the morning.
Right.
So this is Sombra Hoedowners.
That's right, and it belonged to her, did it? To Elaine Weeks.
It which?
Elaine Weeks
Elaine Weeks.
in Wallaceburg. She's in Wallaceburg at present, in a nursing home, like me.
So are all these people that you know? Or are they
Now,
characters?
some of them are some of my characters. I even have a little pussycat up in one there, I think, up there, yeah.
Look at the kids.
Yeah, and it's near Sombra, where Elaine has a small farm and so on. And this was an annual due in that part of the country. So I painted it as I thought I knew, because We used to have barn dances up in Port Arthur either, so.
Well, there's a real, people can come up if you haven't had a look at it later, but there's, kids up in the loft coming down, people losing their shoes.
Yeah, this is at Sombra,
Yeah.
or just outside of Sombra, yeah.
So here is kneeling in the church in the morning. The next day, St. Paul's Anglican Church opened in 1868, donated by the Grand Trunk Railway. It was then located opposite the U.S. Lighthouse near the lake. Kneath Gallery. And I know Lori knows there's some portraits in here, community portraits. Who's being baptized? Do you know?
Pardon me. Oh, this is our beautiful little church up in Port Edward.
Is this the church you still go to?
Yes, yeah. And my minister is here, I think, somewhere.
Yeah?
There we are.
I mean, on one level, you look at Stan's pieces and you see them as these chaotic, filled activity works, but there's also strong, strong design. The composition, they're laid out and they're and the chaos is over top of this solid composition, which gives it.
Yeah. Well, there's a point to that. Is after getting doused by the minister and the funk, the youngsters are allowed to run up and down the aisle, sprinkling anointing everybody else. Yeah.
Does anybody have a piece they want me to, or should I just keep going?
You're doing great.
The Great Debate. John A. Macdonald, Alex Mackenzie, Prime Minister. So here we have the Sarnia #1 Fire Hall, the little cat up there. The Great Debate, Wednesday, August 21st, 1872. A fiery verbal exchange in front of the Sarnia Fire Hall as John A. inadvertently intrudes on a Liberal rally under the leadership of Alex Mackenzie. Did that happen in Sarnia?
Yeah, well, that's just down the road here, across the other side of
George Street.
Yeah. So it's just down the road, and part of the political scene at that time, with John A. Macdonald and all the rest of them, yeah. And of course, this was even then an important port, which is a good way to get around by boats and so on. Yeah.
Does anyone have a question, or whoever brought it in want to ask a question, or?
Was this from your imagination, like from read the historical facts, and then was it done from imagination, or did you have news clippings or pictures that you took it from?
Yeah.
Did you?
This picture, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a fair amount in the history books written about it, and I tried to emulate that a little bit, and so on. Yeah.
Was it great?
So it's like
Most of this is quote, I think. A fiery verbal exchange in front of the Sarnia Fire Hall.
And the fire hall was just over here, right about where the end of Victoria Street.
Yeah.
Right in the center of the
that's right.
of the mall.
And there's an expert talking about that, right? Mr. Hill.
Were the faces familiar, or just one that you?
What?
The faces of the people who were present, were they familiar to you in the community?
I can't hear.
He asked if the faces are people that you know. Are they familiar to you, or are they from your imagination? Or can you pick
mostly
people out?
from my imagination, because it's strictly cartoonist. Sometimes you like to get people's image and their facial thing in, because when you do a painting like this, they go around and pick each other out and call them names and all the rest of it. And that makes a painting quite interesting when you've got some familiar faces in it. You
Yeah.
know. So, looking at those, I don't think, there's what's his name there with the wavy hair? John A. John
John A.
McDonald. And I don't know who he is. He sneaked in somehow or other. Oh, that's Alexander Mackenzie. Yeah.
Do you have fun doing it?
Do you have fun doing these kinds of works?
Oh, yeah. Because,
Do you make yourself laugh?
because people get interested immediately when they see what you're doing and start asking questions.
So we have a painting of you painted a painting of a painting. This is the mural across the street. And we looked at this the other day,
Oh, yeah.
and I think you're in there.
Yeah. Oh, that has to be me somewhere here. Yeah. Oh, that's not me. I came from South Africa. But
And I think you
it's
thought
not-
maybe you saw Lynn in there.
yeah.
Is Lynn in there? Lynn Brogdon?
Trying to sell the painting.
She was up there.
Oh, he pointed an angel.
She had all the high parts.
So there's somebody standing there looking at the piece and the fiddler.
Yeah.
So this was done in '95.
So, and there are political figures, and Stan, there are political figures in there, aren't there?
Right.
There are political figures in this piece?
Oh,
So
right.
you're a political
well,
cartoonist too?
Yeah, he is.
You want me to get me into trouble? There's the Queen, who is visiting Sarnia, and that's the mayor of that time. And they
Mike Bradley.
have a
Is that Mike
parade.
Bradley?
Yeah, that's what we intended.
Roger Galloway's there too.
Yeah.
Oh,
We put the Queen in because she had visited, or was visiting, because they came in by, well, of course, this is a local boat with Charlotte on it, But there was a festive air at that time with the royalty in town, And of course, I got the violin that's playing very squeaky. And I got somebody over, she's demanding that somebody come in and remove this guy.
so he is painting a story.
And he's taken, and the composition is sort of taken a little bit off of Renoir's, you know, the famous painting?
Off of, you stole from Renoir?
You did.
Did you?
This guy.
He did. This artist did, not that
He
artist.
was looking at an abstract on the other one. All kinds of wiggles and stuff.
I find this one interesting. It's not the original, but it's a very interesting perspective. I'd be very interested to know how you managed to get that perspective.
Oh, I didn't. I just have an ability to do that kind of perspective.
So you imagined yourself as a bird.
The birds are all there, and they were busy raiding the people down below at the fish and chip shop, and swooping down and taking out the fish and the chips.
So that's a painting of a bird's eye view of the Blue Water Bridge being built. It's very interesting. But I also think, again, it's very interesting that, you know, there's the fish and chip shop, and there's the Blue Water Bridge being built, and there's probably somebody's
Sailing
Sail
up
that.
against the tide, up against the current, and so on,
Oh, the Canadian side and the American
And,
side.
Right. And that's a difficult job, almost as high as the climbing up on the building over there.
Almost. Yeah. Yep.
He was Googling.
before Googling was
Yeah,
possible.
there you
go,
World
Google or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a Google, it is like a Google.
It's totally, is that a Russian flag?
None of that other malarkey, just speak Canadian.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now you're getting really political.
Yeah, yeah,
Or you're being a nationalist.
yeah.
A second Tom Connor.
Yeah, well, this has to be Ottawa, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm trying to think now what I did. It's, yeah, everybody's Mounties and people with Canadian flags and special flags back here. It has to be in Ottawa, I'm sure, because Doris and I had made a trip to Ottawa, and there was one particular thing here. There was a guy wearing a red tie, and as Roger Gallagher lives here, I did a painting for him with his red tie on, because he's a liberal. Liberals all wear red ties.
So this must be a liberal in there?
Yeah.
Well, that looks like Trudeau.
Oh, that's Trudeau.
No, I don't know. But it's a, what was your question about it?
Oh, it's just, I was trying to figure out that look with the sickle on the green flag.
Oh, it looks like a
Is it a beaver?
squirrel or a beaver. Is that a beaver flag?
Yeah, it
Okay.
better be. Yeah, oh no, it's supposed to be a, yeah, it is a beaver, because you got a big flapper on the back. Yeah. And that, there has to be somebody there making a big speech. No, it's a liberal congregation. All busy talking to each other. And the guy, I remember being guided by the people we visited, and you go through and you have to remove all your money or what, your purses or jackknives or whatever. And the trouble was, I got to that part, and I tied everything that I owned to my pant belt. And it took quite a while for me to unhook all the equipment
I thought
put
you,
it in a
I
box
thought you were going to
before
say,
could
so
go.
I had to take my pants off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
And there I am, right there, with my pants around my
Yeah,
knees.
yeah. That's right.
Stan, did you used to teach a small groups of artists? Because there were paintings you've done of artist groups down by the river and the, what are the,
Yeah. Yeah. What was that?
were there groups of people that you taught art to?
Did you
Because
teach?
you used to show some of them down by the chip trucks in the water. You would put in these art groups, people doing the painting.
I may have done a little group at times, but I can't recall.
Okay.
No.
So you didn't teach art classes in the community and take them down and have them set up outside and paint?
No,
No?
I don't think so. Well, I may have, I can't recall back. Yeah.
Sometimes
Did I
you
teach
taught
you?
people at the Stray Basin.
No,
You,
yeah,
that's why I thought maybe you did.
anyway, that's a good idea.
Does anybody else have one, or does anybody have a question?
There's one there of the Mackinac race under the bridge. It's a gray mat around it.
Oh, right over behind the easel, Lisa.
All of that, yeah.
The 62nd annual Mackinac Race, July 19th, 1986, sailed past through the strait out into Lake Huron. This
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like a watercolor.
Yeah, it looks, yeah. Well, there you are. It's a very busy, against all the currents and a big ocean freighter going through the midst, all the middle of,
An ocean freighter going through in which?
the middle of all the excursion.
And half these boats are sinking.
Well, the waves are, it's pretty rough under there, and yeah.
Are they bobbing up and down?
Yeah, oh yeah, you can see they're right up in the air here. This one's going straight down. But look at the size of the freighter.
Yeah.
You just steaming through the whole lot. I think we had an opinion that's what they were doing, yeah, the freighter. Because he was blowing his whistle and nobody was moving out of his way, and he just took off.
So he just plowed right through.
But that's my impression of what was happening there.
Did you have a specific question that you wanted to ask?
No, that's great, just to hear him comment.
It's quite whimsical.
Lisa,
Yes.
this one,
This is the one, it's up the Utter Farm in Arcona, and he's got everything in the picture of all the different activities that happened there, and they're all in one picture,
Oh, yeah.
and also on the barn.
This is Arcona.
Arcona,
Yeah.
Also
The
on
Fred-
the barn, you can't see it there, but there was a mural painted on the side of the
Yeah,
barn.
yeah.
And he
The
did that
barn
for-
is
he did
down
lots of
this way, but it's similar to
It's
that.
not in that picture.
But the mural is on there.
A mural that you did?
Yeah,
Well,
it's still
not
there.
standing up very
Yeah.
well. It's pretty.
But this over here is the comfort zone, and this is the church that Fred Lever organized
My
in
father
Arcona. Yeah,
the tractor in front.
yeah.
That's your father running the tractor?
That's Fred Lever
Yeah,
from
yeah.
that was at Manly's.
Yeah,
Ah.
And so he did that picture, and it's all the different activities. There was going out to the woods, Dad's driving the tractor. There's activities around the lodge, there's things at the church.
Yeah.
So this is all in one picture. The way he's done that all together is very.
yeah.
And in your experience, does this capture the sort of mood of the community?
The funness of it. And
Yeah.
Everybody's there, and there's so many activities happening all of it. And it's
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Fred did a marvel for that, wasn't he? We would go there, and they would just look after us. Terrific. You know, there's picnics, everything, and even the Salvation Army would come and supply music, wouldn't they? Yeah, from across from Port Huron. Yeah. Well,
So we'll leave these up here, and people are more than welcome to come and have a closer look after. Now here's an odd one. The cuckoo clock.
well, that was a cigar box at the first, and we did all that. Well, I think we got a clockmaker from.
You got a clockmaker?
Yeah, from down the street here. Who is the lady? There she is, way back there. Yeah. Right, yeah.
Laird Dixon? Nixon.
Yeah, oh yeah, right. Sorry, terrible with names. Yeah.
Oh, there's the artist.
I think it's beautiful. Yeah.
A cow kicking over. Oh, there's the cow kicking over the milk.
That's right. Yeah. And a couple of guys down here are getting the benefit of that. Yeah.
And so, an object like this, did the person who asked you to paint it tell you what they wanted a theme, or did you just let loose? How did you come up with the imagery for a piece like that?
Yeah, right. On anything you do, you do a rough sketch first, so they have a good idea of what's going to happen or what you're trying for. Yeah. It's quite necessary because you could spend a lot of time, and then they say, "Oh, I didn't want that. I wanted it somewhere else." Because it's part of the family.
Right.
And so you do a sketch to make sure you're going in the right direction. And maybe they can lend you some pictures and so on, which are ideal because you've got it there permanently, and so on, yeah.
So are most of the works that you did, were you commissioned or did people buy them after? Or a little of both?
Oh, some are commissioned, yeah, and we're all my salesmen. No, we get involved with people, and it's necessary to do portraits or something. And
How did you get the permission, or was it a competition to do that mural across the street?
oh, how did that happen? Yeah, yeah, because I think part of it is on Manley's. Fred Lieber would Fred would come up to me and say, I got an idea for you, you know, and he'd give me something and I'd have to paint it for him.
This was, who was that?
Fred Lieber
Oh,
ran Manley's, yeah. I think I'm correct there. Because I've got a lot of Fred Lieber stuff still around.
So was this a committee that, of the city of
Yes,
Sarnia that
yes,
was?
Yes.
City
And
committee, go ahead.
the first mural, we brought a muralist in from the west coast, and he did the tunnel. And then the concept was that the rest of the murals that were gonna be all over would be local artists. And it ended up that there was only one other one made through the murals committee, and that was Stan's.
Oh yeah, that's right, because we had a little contest all the way
Yes.
around town, yeah.
That's right.
And you got, you ended up with whatever they told you they wanted, or where they wanted, I should
Yes.
say, not what they wanted.
So was
yeah.
this the sketch you did for the mural committee? This painting? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Or did you do it after? This one of the mural, is this what you submitted to the mural committee as your
I
idea?
think that's,
You know, I can't remember, Stan. I think it must have been after because
yeah,
I.
yeah, it could be, yeah.
Part of the direction you were asking, Stan, if I can help fill in some detail of it, is that you were asking whether he was commissioned for a lot of his work. A tremendous amount of the work when he was doing commercial work, and that's when I worked with Stan on projects. Yes, it was dictated
Yeah.
pretty well. Ideas were shared. You were doing sketches,
Yeah, that's right.
approval of the end result.
Yeah,
But these more whimsical,
okay.
these fun things were done for your entertainment, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
were
I
all
think so,
done to
yeah.
express,
For
hey,
me.
this is the good fun side of being a fine artist.
Yeah, I have problems with the work that is on now. I'm no longer allowed to climb a ladder.
I think you had fun doing it.
Pardon?
I think you had fun doing it, and the liberties that you took in some of the
Yeah,
paintings, and
yeah.
they were really enjoyable. And
Yeah.
you did a painting, my children had it done of our cottage for me,
Yeah,
and they gave you a number of pictures. And we have a number of redheads in our family, and you certainly had the redheads on the
yeah,
ground by the cottage, but you also had fish with some red fins.
yeah.
And some birds, which was fantastic.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I variate my style or technique or way I do it many times, and I'm quite often surprised myself, like I am tonight. Wow.
The pen and ink drawings are.
Yeah.
Pen and ink drawing, let's
Yeah,
have a look
what
at the pen and ink drawing. Okay.
Oh,
There's a whole series of those at our church.
He did a whole series that are all historical sketches of Point Edward.
Oh,
What
they're
was on the
almost,
oh, that's Point
so let me
Edward.
just show a little bit. They're almost like topographical with the names of the streets done on perspective. St. Paul's Anglican Church, the location of the church, the style of the construction, and the tinting of the steeple were not matters of whimsy, but of practical good sense and deliberate plan. From 1868 until 1902, the tall steeple with its flashing roof, together with the Fort Gratiot lighthouse, served to guide the sailing vessels and ships on Lake Huron. To the channel leading into St. Clair River, St. Paul's Church was built for the village by the Grand Trunk Railroad. In 1902, the church was moved. So they're really almost architectural type drawings
Oh, yeah.
and mechanical
Yeah.
drawings
Yeah.
compared to the whimsy
Yeah.
one. So like you say, he's got a lot of different styles that he can fall into for different purposes. Eh?
Yeah, it's a pen and ink.
Yeah.
I did a number of pen and inks for Point Edward, yeah.
There's the steeple, the only
Right.
piece of color in there.
Yeah, I think it got moved since then, over here, yeah, on the main drive now. And it used to be a lot in the back, a lot of near the water, yeah.
And there's horse and buggy.
Yeah, and these are all Grand Trunk buildings. The Grand Trunk Railroad came in too. So there you are.
So it's also interesting that, different styles, but also different levels of accuracy for different reasons and in different pieces.
Yeah,
Different kinds of accuracy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that's,
It's interesting, the history that was always accompanying the paintings.
There's a whole series of those that he did in Point Edward, along with Fred, along with your dad.
They used to have a meeting once a week at Bridge Tavern and have lunch. And Father would be here with some other idea, so poor Stan would have a job for the next week.
when did you ever get any printing done at Haynes?
Yeah.
He must have been a pretty
This was in
liberal.
later years.
Oh, okay.
This would have to be more in
Yeah.
They used to-
And Stan
Yeah.
Norris,
Nancy is the organist for our church.
You also
And-
he did a lot of historical work for the man in Godrich too.
and Forrest, a whole
Forrest.
history book of Forrest.
He would get historical things and then he would
Yeah.
pen
He
these
has
drawings.
5 volumes of books, The Hole in the Wall, and there's 5 volumes out now. And he did all the illustrating of all
Yeah.
the ships, and all the trains, all the ships, trains, and people in Forest
Yeah.
and Grand Bend and Goderich.
So 5 books,
Yeah. He
5 books you've published,
Fun?
5 books. You were
Oh,
saying that you have 5 books of Grand Bend.
I got books
Ships.
published, yeah. Peter Sturdy is the writer from Godrich and so on, and we've done about 5 books altogether. They're quite good, some of them, terrific, I do say it myself. Yeah. They're full of pen and ink drawings and so on, yeah,
nice.
yeah.
So one of the questions from the group was, how long does it take you to do a painting?
Oh, well, that's pretty different. I mean, it depends on the number of people you get. Whether you like it or not, you may have to do some of it over again or whatever, correct your work, or once you see what you've done and etc. It takes quite a while to do one of those.
A week?
And even one of these, yeah. Well, at least a week. I would say 2 weeks at least to give yourself room, because a lot of time you have to organize the frame to get the size of the panel that fits in it. And I usually go to garage sales and get frames, and then I find the size of the picture to be. I can go and get a piece of masonite cut to size to fit in when I get the painting done.
Right.
Which is easier. Then, of course, the other way is to go and buy a canvas, which is probably the proper way, but I think masonite is accepted now, yeah.
So this is a painting that's in the collection of the gallery.
Yeah.
It's of the old gallery over at the Sarnia Public Library. It's the top floor. And you can see all the kids just loving the art as they're begging to leave. Yeah. It looks like an opening. Oh, is that you?
No, that's the, oh, no.
Is that you giving a talk?
It could have been. No, I didn't give the talk. I was up at the top of these stairs making the sketch. You know, from the second floor down, it gave me a aerial view of the whole area. And that looks like my size. Well, I used to be a lot heavier than I am now, so. And
there's a nice little. Those are those reflecting mirrors.
Yeah,
So there's a nice little, almost Escher-like image up there.
Yeah.
Somebody falling off the piano.
Well, there's a little bit of jazz getting in there. Well, there's a choir there because they're singing.
Well, it looks like an orchestra.
There's a violin and so on, yeah. Okay.
Are you still painting, Stan?
Pardon?
Are you still painting?
Not too much. No, I'm 94, and I slowed down, and I kind of regret that a little bit because I look at these paintings and I say, oh my God, did I do this? What am I doing slowing down? And because it's terrific to get all of these people saying how good you are.
And that's what started it.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I honestly regret slowing down, but then it's a part of getting old because my hands shake, which makes it difficult pen and ink, but watercolor is not too bad on a fine brush. But it takes me a lot longer now to do one, yeah. I don't know.
Have you ever done a self-portrait?
Well, not that I would want to show.
I bet he's hidden in some of these.
Yeah, I'd have to be in there.
All the great masters do that, you know?
Yeah.
All the great filmmakers, Alfred Hitchcock does that.
That's almost as good as signing the painter, yeah.
It's like, instead of find Elmo, it's, or Waldo, find Stan.
No, it's a good thing to do if you can do it. And are you still painting? Well, really, you shouldn't quit.
I bet you're painting in your head all the time.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I lay in bed and the paintings are in the gloom now. I got the lights off, but they're entirely different and so on. And I say, boy, maybe I should do another one of those. It's already laid out.
I think Stan isn't just an artist when you look at his paintings in the sense that he's capturing an image or an activity that happened. He's also a storyteller. And I think whether we know the story or not, or whether Stan tells us the story, I think we can make up stories. You know, I think kids and people for years and years to come, whether they know all the details, it doesn't really matter, because Stan's work really captures the essence of the activity, and the familiarity of it lives in all of us, I think. So I would just like to, on behalf of everybody here, and on behalf of the community and the future community, because you're going to be on the internet. Your brother might have made it onto the TV, but way more people are going to see you on the internet when we get that all edited up and everything else. So thank you so much, and thank you to the people who helped you come here tonight and share your stories and share your art. I feel grateful.
I'm happy for them because